Winding through the suburbs, the river and forest are a highway for local birds and wildlife. To build her new home here without disturbing the greenbelt, Jane Prinsloo set it at the forest edge near the road. The design had to ensure privacy on the one hand and optimize views on the other.
What an entrance. As soon as I walk in, I feel like I'm nestled within the forest.
I'm so glad you like it. It is very special, isn't it? It's very peaceful. Won't you come in?
All right, thank you.
As you step up on the wooden floor, could I ask you just to have a seat and take your shoes off?
All right.
Thanks, Harmony. We don't wear shoes in this house.
Oh, wow.
The house is made up of 2 pavilions joined by a glazed link. In the living area, Jane is surrounded by artifacts and books collected over a lifetime.
You were quite involved with this project. What was your goal when you started?
I did work very closely with the architect Robert Diaga, and we spent about 7 months trying to develop the details and the design. And what we were looking for was a house that would suit me as an individual, but also would be very comfortable for a family. A house that would suit the different phases of life.
Your living room is quite unique and contemporary. What do you like most about this design space?
I think the bookcase that covers the entire wall and the fireplace, together books and a fire make a wonderful, warm, welcoming space. But I think what makes it really special is the clever work that the architect did to give me privacy from my neighbors, but yet a feeling of openness. We've got obviously the large window looking out to the garden, and then on this end wall, I wanted a skylight, so he pushed the wall out and we have sunlight that washes down over the bookshelf, and it makes a wonderful space and light all day long.
The bookcase looks nice, but I'm intrigued by the collection of books.
Yes, actually that's a very special collection. My husband was the professor of architecture at University of Cape Town for many years, and this is his architectural collection, and it is very special.
This is the home of an avid reader, TV viewer, and art collector.
I can't help but notice the Salvador Dali in the back and an array of beautiful artifacts.
There are actually some very interesting pieces. Here on the end, the large ones, are paper kites that Ivor and I bought at the Great Wall of China. Not great art pieces, but very dramatic. Next to them is a small Salvador Dali. Salvador Dali did illustrations of each of the chapters of Alice in Wonderland. And this is the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. And some of the other pieces up on the top of the bookcase, there is a fish, that's a Jackson Chumwani fish. And next to it is a stone sculpture from Colleen Marakombe, and that's very special too. But I think the thing that is most precious to me is probably this fabric that's on the dining table. It's called a kira. It's from Bhutan. It's worn rather like the Indian saris are worn, but it's very, very special because this is not embroidered. It is a woven fabric, which is extremely difficult to do. So everything in the house actually has a meaning for me. It's either the person or the friend who gave it to us.
I love the way the art flows straight into even the kitchen, so much so that one could forget that this was actually a kitchen.
You know, the kitchen is so integrated into the dining room and the living room that we wanted to make it look less functional and more beautiful.
What are some of the elements that make it practical?
The architect made some very clever decisions that make a relatively small space feel larger than it is. He's used large format tiles, a dark color so that the ground disappears. He's raised the cupboard so your eye disappears beneath the cupboard. And generally tried to bring light from outside into the kitchen. There are some mirrors on one side, on the inner side of the kitchen, which then reflect light back. So there's always light when you're working.
To maximize the heating effect of the sunlight and fireplace, there's insulation beneath the ground floor, up through the masonry and into the ceilings. The double glazing keeps heat in while opening this entire wall to the scenery.
So this is the main bedroom.
This is like living in the trees.
It is like being in a tree house, isn't it?
One of the things that definitely stands out for me is this interesting looking chair.
Yes, that was designed by an architect, a Dutch architect, almost 100 years ago. His name is Gerrit Rietveld. It was built for my husband by his architectural students.
The colors and lines echo the graphics of Dutch painter Piet Mondrian.
This is more comfortable than I thought.
It fits your body well.
Yeah. Looking at this place, there's so much going on. Tell me a little bit more about some of the pieces you used to decorate this room.
We don't have a great deal, but the ones that might be most interesting are these set of combs. They're probably about 150 years old, and my great-great-grandmother used to wear them when they wore their hair all up. They've been in boxes for about 100 years, and I decided to get them out so that I could enjoy them.
And it's complemented so well by these other images, but there's a particular image I saw in your shower.
Yeah, that's right. That's a print by Walter Battis, a South African artist. We thought, make the bathroom beautiful too.
Jane has integrated decor and practical features within the interior architecture.
That is such a clever design.
That's the chimney that's coming up from the fireplace in the living room downstairs. The only heating in the house comes from that fireplace. So we drew the chimney and the heat up through the bedroom so that this room gets some of that benefit as well.
Being in here with this immaculate view makes me want to step outside. Shall we go see the garden?
Let's go have a look.
All right.
The house was shaped to the natural lie of the ground, and the plants look like they seeded themselves.
It must be so nice to have a forest as your garden.
Yes, it is absolutely wonderful, and I feel really privileged because these trees are over 100 years old, the bigger ones, and it's something that you just don't always find.
The forest can be quite wild. How did you add in your feminine touch?
You're right, it is, but that's actually something I love about the garden. I like a wild and unstructured garden generally. What I've found is that if you have things like the pathways that have clear edges and the lawn that's kept trimmed, then everything else can be quite full and loose and unstructured, and it looks good. The other thing that I've done, because it's a relatively large garden, is to choose a few plants and just plant them in mass. So it's not busy, it's not frenetic, it's very calm, and you get a strong performance from each of the different plants.
In her search for the right architect, Jane chose Robert Diaha, one of her husband Ivor Prinsloo's former students. Together, they've created an original.
I think I'm going to leave you all, have a chat. I'll be back. I'm going to make us some tea.
All right. Robert, so you're the man behind this amazing design. What was the brief that you got from Jane?
So Jane had a couple of requirements. I think her main concern is that she would get a compact house and a house that had a certain degree of elegance and a sense of clean lines, and would look at sustainable issues in a way that would work in the city rather than in the country. For example, the envelope of the house, the roof, the walls, even under the floor, is all very well insulated. So in a sense, the house has a blanket around it, and every window in the house is double glazed. So that's looking at the thermal heat transfer aspect, and wide eaves to keep out the summer sun but allow the winter sun in. And because the eaves are so wide, you get lovely rainwater harvesting from the roof without gutters because of all these needles from the trees.
One of the features that make this home incredible is this amazing forest. How mindful were you of this area?
Jane knows this area over many years, and the whole sequence of forested landscape that goes from Kirstenbosch down towards Rondebosch is part of her terrain. So we have a strategy of removing no trees. And the other aspect is to try to incorporate the poetics of trees, the solvent factor, into the more precise mathematical qualities of the house.
Jane runs her massage therapy practice from here, and it's a serene environment. Robert's design has won an award from the Cape Institute of Architects, and it's sure to be the first of many.
As a writer, this would be my favorite creative spot. But what do you love most about your home?
You know, what I think I enjoy the most is the integration of the house and the garden. When you're in the house, in almost every room, you're looking out at the garden, and what I get pleasure from throughout the day is the way the light comes through the leaves in different angles. That's just magic.
Jane, thank you so much for having me and for choosing the perfect spot for a beautiful afternoon cup of tea.
It's been wonderful having you. Thank you.
There's plenty of room for Jane's daughters and family to visit, with the one pavilion almost a home of its own. It's the kind of nest you're happy to return to.